lecture for today is negotiation. It's as simple as that, one word. What is it? Well, it's communication. Could be face-to-face or via electronic means. Two or more people or organizations come together to seek mutual agreement about an issue or issues. There's give and take. You have to manage time, information, and here this is a critical part, is power between individuals and organizations who are interdependent, that they don't have a tie, or there's a clear separation between the two. It also implies a relationship between people, not just organizations. And very key to all of this is the idea of persuasion. Salespeople have to persuade other people to buy their products. Managers have to work through other people to persuade them to get work done. And buyers need to work with people who are selling, say like salespeople. They need to use persuasion to get the price that they, or the set of value that they need. Not everybody is born a negotiator, but the skills for negotiation can be honed and practiced. We have some terms here on this slide. BATNA, that stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. Please learn that. That is, in fact, there's a slide later on in today's lecture, or in this lecture, that explains BATNA. We need to know about our positions and the positions of the other side. What are our interests? What is it that motivates us? Why are we negotiating? And we need to differentiate between a need and a want. Needs are higher order. Wants are that icing on the cake. If we get what we need, then we move on to wants. The first step, know exactly what you want. Step 2 is know exactly what they want. Step 3 is to come up with a plan of action to where you and the other party can both get what you want. So here it is. Here's the plan. Taking that previous slide, let's spell it out. Identify the participants. Who's in your team? Who's in their team? Who's going to be across the table from you? Then develop objectives. What is it that we want? What do we expect to get out of this negotiation? Also, try to determine as much as possible what you think the other side wants out of the negotiation. Analyze your strengths and weaknesses. Determine what their strengths and weaknesses are. Gather information. Maybe that should be a previous bulletin, is about getting information. Recognize the other party's needs. I think that we've more or less discussed that. Identify facts and issues and separate them from emotion as much as possible. Prioritize them and then establish positions. Where is it, or what is the top item you want? What's the secondary? What's the third? And so on. You come up with strategies of how you're going to do this. You brief your personnel. You discuss it. You maybe even come up with a little manual of how you're going to conduct your negotiation, and then practice. Don't go in without practicing. And practice can be simple. It can be full-blown. It's just like a debate. Why would you go into a debate without having first practiced it? Okay, here we are. Memorize this slide. There are two positions. You have a buyer, you have a supplier or a seller. You're going to have the BATNA for one side, and you're going to have the BATNA for the other side. And in between, in this zone that's yellow, you're going to have the zone of likely agreement. You will, at some point in here, come up with an agreement, and it should be win-win. We will discuss that later on. Win-win. That means don't take all the marbles. Let them have something to take home too. When you conduct the negotiation, as we've discussed earlier, perform your fact-finding. Occasionally recess, discuss for a while, recess and caucus as necessary. Depending on how big and important, maybe dollar amount this negotiation is, it may not be done in one session. It may be several sessions. I know that when we negotiated union contracts, we would have it over maybe a 6 or 7 week period. We would meet once a week, and we would go over what we'd done in the previous week, and we'd go to the next step. And you work to narrow the differences. If we found that there was a sticking point, that something was a big problem, what we would do is we would start negotiating the easier ones and then leave the big ones for later. Go for the easy, or what you might call the low-hanging fruit. You need to manage your time pressures. You've got, just like project management, you have a time period. Don't let this go off into months or to years. That doesn't help them. It doesn't help you. Maintain an informal atmosphere. Get to know them. Talk to them as people, and try to get them to like you and talk to you as if you are a friend too. Occasionally, you'll need to summarize your progress. Say something to the effect, well, up to this point, we've been able to do this and this and this in a very, positive, friendly manner. And this is just one of the tactics. And in your textbook, in your chapter, there's a whole list of tactics. We're not going to be going over all of those here. And finally, keep your relationships positive. Never get negative. Don't try to stay away from being emotional. And always find something positive about what you see in them. Power is a very important thing in negotiation, and whether it's real power or perceived power, you need to keep the semblance or the idea that you have power. Now, you should not try to denigrate or reduce the other side that they don't have power, but don't let them ever perceive you as being weak. Okay? That's not good. So for both sides, it's adult to adult. We're going back to the win-win kind of thing. Now, where do you get power? Reciprocation is one example. You give them something, they give you something. Yes, we're going to talk about that. You don't ever negotiate from a total source of power, and you don't, compromise or give a concession. You have to. Consistency is that yesterday, today, tomorrow, your position is consistent. Well, anyway, let's continue with the lecture. Concessions, give and take. Some people might call it horse trading. That's seen as negative, or wheeling dealing. But I think the give and take is that you're going to give something, you're going to take something back. You have to concede, you have to do compromises. You have to leave yourself enough room. Don't ever get staked out to a position that you're so rigid that you can't move on it. Now, what you would like to do is also find out what the other side, and give them a chance to reveal its needs and objectives. Let them do that first. You got to concede on minor issues early, but not on the major ones. Leave those for later. When you do concede on an unimportant item, make it look like it's very valuable, and make the other party work hard for every concession that you make. And hopefully, if they're good negotiators, they're going to do the same thing to you. Recognize that. If they aren't, if they're coming to the table as poor negotiators, this isn't good. It's going to be like a dance, and you need to know that there are steps, dance steps, and they're going to do something, you're going to do something. They recognize that in you, you recognize that in them. Don't reveal your deadline. Smile, stay above it. Don't get emotional, don't get nervous. Occasionally you might have to say no to them. Whenever you do give a concession, write it down so that you know what you've been giving away. Write down their concessions and see if you can find a pattern to what they're doing. Win-win negotiation, that's what we want. If you're dealing with suppliers that you think that, or you feel that you're developing a relationship and you want to be with them for a long time, it's just like being in a family or, a personal relationship, is that you want them to win also. It's not going to be where you pound them away, you get everything and they get nothing. It's like when playing Monopoly. Are you going to beat everybody is a competitor, or are your suppliers going to be collaborators? And that is one of the important things to do, is to envision the other side. Are they your collaborators, or are they competitors? And if it's your supplier, they should not be seen as competitors. The last slide that we're dealing with is international negotiation. The issue that we deal with here is that there's complexity of time, possibly, complexity of different location. You're out of your comfort zone. They may be out of their comfort zone if they're visiting you. And there's another one, it's big, it's culture and language. And they may perceive things very differently than the way you do it. And even the way that they negotiate based on their culture may be different than yours. As with any international communication, avoid jargon, talk about the things, develop that relationship. It's very important that they know that you are looking for a win-win situation. Of course, you're not going to give the store away. You're not going to give things away. That you have to negotiate, but that you are there, that you want to make this happen. Sometimes you may need translators. You may need some extra help. Go ahead and hire this, or have consultants working with you if it's that big of a contract that you're working on. Anyway, that concludes the end of this lecture.